Now, did you spot the ghost in my Ghost of Ivy Barn unboxing video? He pops up 4 times. So let's start with the obvious one right at the end. So my twitching hand there, here we go. Boom. Yeah, apologies if anyone spilled any tea over that. Also, if you listen very carefully, you can hear some Polish radio chit-chat added by Dominic Curry to the score. Listen now. Okay, here are the other two that most people get. So there's one at 37 seconds in, right about now. There he is in the background. A piano cue helps. And here again at 41, over my shoulder there, right over my shoulder at 41 seconds in. We're going for that haunting of Hill House effect of hiding in plain sight. Speaking of which, where's the one that no one else gets? Well, to be fair, I had to have this one pointed out to me when I was preparing the video for release, and it's in this shot here. Did you see it? 27 seconds in. Now, George, my son, who plays the ghost, he hadn't realised we were filming and was in shot. So he stood behind one of the barn supporting pillars, as we discussed. And he's still wearing the silk scarf we gave him, which we removed in later shots because it just looked a bit too obvious. But can you see it? Can you see it? There we go. Shall we zoom in? Look, there he is. Also, technically, the ghost makes a 5th appearance as the ghost says, "Shut up," just before throwing a box at me. This was added by Dominic. So again, listen carefully. I certainly don't believe in poltergeist, you know, the sort of ghost that... So there you have it. Thanks for playing along, and please have fun sharing the video with your friends, secure in the smug knowledge that you now know where all the ghosts are. Until next time, happy reading, and don't have nightmares. Hello, Mark Stay here. Now, did you spot the ghost in my Ghost of Ivy Barn unboxing video? He pops up 4 times. So let's start with the obvious one right at the end. So my twitching hand there, here we go. Boom. Yeah, apologies if anyone spilled any tea over that. Also, if you listen very carefully, you can hear some Polish radio chit-chat added by Dominic Curry to the score. Listen now. Okay, here are the other two that most people get. So there's one at 37 seconds in, right about now. There he is in the background. A piano cue helps. And here again at 41, over my shoulder there, right over my shoulder at 41 seconds in. We're going for that haunting of Hill House effect of hiding in plain sight. Speaking of which, where's the one that no one else gets? Well, to be fair, I had to have this one pointed out to me when I was preparing the video for release, and it's in this shot here. Did you see it? 27 seconds in. Now, George, my son, who plays the ghost, he hadn't realised we were filming and was in shot. So he stood behind one of the barn supporting pillars, as we discussed. And he's still wearing the silk scarf we gave him, which we removed in later shots because it just looked a bit too obvious. But can you see it? Can you see it? There we go. Shall we zoom in? Look, there he is. Also, technically, the ghost makes a 5th appearance as the ghost says, "Shut up," just before throwing a box at me. This was added by Dominic. So again, listen carefully. I certainly don't believe in poltergeist, you know, the sort of ghost that... So there you have it. Thanks for playing along, and please have fun sharing the video with your friends, secure in the smug knowledge that you now know where all the ghosts are. Until next time, happy reading, and don't have nightmares.
introduce to you, ladies, gentlefolk, and beings of the ether, the author of The Ghost of Ivy Barn, the Venerable Mr. Mark Stay.
Thank you, Merlin. Thank you, everyone, and hello to everyone here. Thank you so much for coming out on this extraordinary day. I know there might be other reasons to celebrate, but anyway, we'll skip over that. And thank you to everyone joining us online as well. Thank you so much for that. It's just amazing. So Merlin and friends, if you want your photo taken with them, they are available for photos. They are from the Wizards Association of North Kent, the WAN. Just Google it. Actually, don't. So how today is going to pan out, I'm going to do some thank yous. I'm going to do a quick reading because Martin here said don't do reading, so I'm going to keep it quick. We're going to have some questions. We have some questions from you good people here, so start thinking of questions. Some questions from the folk online as well, so keep them coming. Then we'll have cake. And there are ingredients on the cake there if you have any kind of allergies as well. We'll have cake, and I will sign some books as well. Now, thank you all for coming. This fella here, the pale fella here, he was here first. He's freaking me out a bit. Hello, thank you for coming. So anyway, thank you, big thank yous. First of all, thank you to Martin and his staff at Waterstones here for hosting us today. Thank you so much. It was Martin's idea. I thought we'd have 3 people and a whippet, but it's great to see so many of you. It's just wonderful. The whippet is coming. Thanks to my publishers, Bethan Jones at Simon & Schuster and all the gang there. Thanks to Harry Goldhawk, who does the most amazing cover art. I'm sure you will agree. I'm a very, very, very lucky author. Thanks to my agent, Ed Wilson. Thanks to my beta readers and editors, including Lisa Rogers, Julian Barr, Ian Sainsbury. You're all wonderful people. I seem to have gathered some kind of technical production team. These are magicians and wizards of their own kind. So huge thanks to Kai Newton there on camera, my daughter Emily Stay there, Douglas Ray, who's helping with the streaming there. It's just amazing. Also, he's not here tonight, but thanks to Dominic Curry, who does the music for all of my trailers and book trailers and stuff. Huge thanks to Andy Bowden, who's right there. He helps me do those wonderful animated GIFs. He does the cover art for all my short stories as well. George, I want to thank my son. He's supposed to be here. He's not here yet, but I want to thank him for being sort of the monster in all my videos. Here's Emily there, Emily Bracknell. She's done makeup and stuff tonight. My lovely Claire for the cakes this evening, and just for putting up with me and not getting too angry when I reversed into her car this evening. But most of all, it's more of a kiss, really. It's 2 cars trying to make a little car. Most of all, I want to thank you, beautiful people, readers, because you've been reading, you've been reviewing, you've been telling your friends about me, you've been going to bookshops and libraries, and it will all be for nothing without you and you lot down there on the interwebs as well. So huge thanks for all of that. So I'm going to do a quick reading, and I will keep it quick. And Ghost of Ivy Barn is the 3rd in the Witches of Woodville, and it's set in a fictional village, which is basically at the end of my garden. I figured it would be the best place to put it because there's a couple of fills that you can kind of squeeze a village in there, and it's like the greatest hits of Kent villages. It's got a great pub, it's got a church with bells, it's got a great community behind it, and I thought it would be great to have magical goings on there in the Second World War. This whole series is one of these things that had been mulling around in my head for about 12 years, and I tried writing a modern day version. It didn't quite work, and it wasn't quite coming together. It was my script agent who said, "Why you set it in the war?" He said, "The Americans like that. They like historical stuff. Set it in the war." Ironically, haven't sold the American rights yet. So if anyone's watching and wants them, they are still available. So I did, and everything clicked into place. And moving here, we moved here about 5 years ago, and we absolutely love it around. It's such a great community. And so it sort of started from there with young Faye, who's a witch discovering her powers. In this one, the Battle of Britain is at its absolute peak. And there's a ritual that they're going to do to ward off the invasion. It's called a Cone of Power ritual. And this actually happened. This was a real ritual. It was done in the New Forest. And there was a warlock, I think his name was Gerald Gardner. And he got a whole bunch of witches and wizards together to do this, where you draw on energy within your body and you've created this cone of power. And they sent it off to occupied Europe, and they said, you cannot cross the sea, you cannot cross the sea. As these are set in Kent, I figured, let's do this, but let's do it on the White Cliffs of Dover. Let's have some drama. Let's make it look cool. So we've got that. Unfortunately, it does involve dancing around in the nuddy as well, which our witches aren't too keen on, but that's a whole subplot. But also in this, there's Faye discovers there's a ghost in a barn of a Polish hurricane pilot who just won't give up the fight. So I'm going to read a short extract from the beginning where the three witches are in a barn. Larry Dell is a local farmer, and he's got a ghost in his barn, and he stops Faye and says, can you help? And the other witches get involved. And they're doing a ritual that involves swishing sage around and magic powders and such. And the three of them are in the barn. So, form a circle, Miss Charlotte commanded. There's three of us, Faye said. We could do a triangle. You know what I mean, Charlotte snapped. Back to back and face outwards. An unseen man's voice screamed inches from Faye's ears. Her heart pounded as if wanting to break out of her chest. Blood rushed in her ears. What the flipping heck was that? He screamed again. It wasn't like a ghost in the films, all echoey and distant. This sounded like he was standing right next to her. His anguished cries became incessant, and the hairs on her arms stood on end. She felt another unnerving sensation, one inside her, as the moon's magic warmed her belly. Oh, she shouted over the racket, I don't like this. I'm not sure we're meant to, my dear, Mrs. Teach swished her sage about for all it was worth. Faye thought about correcting it and describing the strange stirring in her tongue, but the only thing she could compare it to was a bout of flatulence she'd had last Christmas. So she kept it to herself, as this didn't feel like the right time to describe magical wind to Mrs. Teach and Miss Charlotte. Ladies, Charlotte said, when I give the word, take one step forwards. I'm not sure I want to, Faye replied. Why not? Because I think it's right in front of me. Mrs. Teach made a patronizing mewing noise. And what makes you think that, sweetie? I can see its eyes. It was true. Faye was facing the barn doors, and just within arm's reach, she could see two bloodshot eyes suspended in the air. They blinked. Oh, friggin' heck. Take this. Charlotte gave Faye a handful of ash from her black pouch. It was warm and flaky and smelled like the tide was out at the beach. What is it? Throw it in its face. The thing screamed again. The eyes were drifting closer. What will it do? Faye asked, but Charlotte ignored the question. One step forwards now. Faye took a step forward and flung the ash into the air. The eyes snapped shut and the screams intensified. Faye winced at the sound, and that feeling in her belly grew and grew. She was lightheaded, and she could see sparkles in the corners of her eyes. Mrs. Teach continued muttering her incantation as Miss Charlotte handed Faye the whole pouch. Again, Charlotte ordered, and they all took another step forwards. Faye threw another handful of ash. The eyes returned, even redder and darting about now, accompanied by another agonized scream. I'm hurting it. I don't like it, yelled Faye. It's the only way to convince it to leave, Charlotte shouted over the screams. Another step, now! The three women did so and were out of arm's reach now, forming either a circle or a triangle. That was a discussion for another time, giving the ghosts less room to maneuver. Faye tossed more ash before her. This time, the flakes clung to the ghost, and she began to see his shape as he writhed, clutching the sides of his heads. Back! Go back to the light, Miss Charlotte told it. We are the Hecate, and you have no power here. With what? Don't interrupt, dear. It's working, Mrs. Teach said between incantations. Another step, Charlotte said. Faye threw more ash, and the ghost wailed. I've got one more handful, and that's it, she said, looking up into the ghost's face. He was a young man, not much older than her. His hair was lank, like he had been sweating. His cheekbones were sharp, his lips full, and his skin milky white. He looked straight at Faye, his eyes wide, reddened and streaming. Another step, now, Charlotte called out, but Faye stayed where she was. The lad wore a tan flight suit with a pale yellow life jacket. He had 3 gulls on a patch on his arm and a belt with some kind of bird on the buckle. Faye knew from looking through Bertie's books that this young man was a pilot with the Luftwaffe. His mouth moved, but he had no voice. Faye could see from the look in his eyes that he was pleading with her to end the pain. You don't have to be here, Faye said to him gently, her voice wavering as the moon magic inside her made her giddy. You can go any time you want. Go on, have a bit of peace. Another step, Charlotte cried again. Faye glanced back at Mrs. Teach and Miss Charlotte, who were getting closer and closer to the barn's walls. Faye refocused on the ghost. Behind him, by the barn doors, a swirling darkness twisted in the air. It felt old and familiar. That way, she said. He turned and hesitated. I know it must be scary, mate, but I think your time is up. You can either stay here with this lot screaming and waving smelly herbs at you, or you can find out what's on the other side. Faye had no idea whether he could even hear her, let alone understand her, but he lowered his head and nodded. He gave Faye a small, grateful smile before running to the barn doors. The darkness ballooned and clung around the pilot like smoke as the barn doors swung open and daylight stabbed Faye's eyes. She closed them and let the warmth of the summer sun prickle her skin. By the time her eyes had adjusted to the brightness, the ghost and the darkness were gone. Good work, ladies, Mrs. Teach's voice came from the far end of the barn. I think we've done it. Miss Charlotte started sniffing the air again. I think you're right. Good job. Well done. I'll send a report to Vera and let you know what she says. She gave a little salute and headed back the way she had come across the bridle path on Larry Dell's brassica field. I'll let poor Larry know that his barn is safe, Mrs. Teach pottered off towards the farmer's cottage. Faye watched them go and wondered if she should tell them what she had seen and what she had felt. But what was done, and the young pilot was gone now anyway. The odd sensation in her belly was subsiding already, and she began to feel like herself again. She turned to close the barn door to find another pilot standing in the center of the barn. This one wore RAF blues. Half of his face was burned red and raw. He looked terrified, like a child skipping school, as he raised a finger to his mouth. Shh. Faye blinked. When she opened her eyes again, he was gone. Thank you very much. Hope that wasn't too long. Is that right, Martin? Fine, thank you. Any questions, folks? Any questions? Any questions online, Emily? Oh, blimey. Sarah at the back.
How much time do you spend on research?
It's a good question. It's kind of a never-ending thing with me because there's so much to learn, and the books are progressing through the war. So hopefully I'll get to the end of the war at some point. So what I tend to do is the first draft. I do very little research. I tell the story that I want to tell. Then I figure out the things that I need to know. So I will go back and I'll look at, was this rationed at the time? What sort of flights, what was happening, that kind of thing. I look at timelines. There are amazing books. The Shire books, that one of my favorite part of this bookshop is the Shire books carousel over there. It's brilliant. It's got, because there's a bit in this book with the pillboxes, the old concrete pillboxes. There's a whole Shire book on pillboxes. It's fantastic. So it's that sort of, you discover what you need to find out. The other thing I like doing is watching films that were made at the time. So a great one, local film, is A Canterbury Tale, the Powell and Pressburger film, because it was made in, I think, 1940. And it's little things like, did people say yeah? Okay, because my natural inclination is to, oh yeah. And then you think, did people say it? But of course, there's a couple of bits in that film where you got particularly farmers going, yeah. They say it in a slightly, not the way we necessarily say it now, but they say yeah. So I was like, yes, license to say yeah. Excellent. Little things like that. So I will, and in the second book as well, there's George Formby film that they go and see. And the thing you're looking for is how much people pay for a round of drinks, which is really difficult to find out. But if it's in a film at the time, you go, brilliant, I'm nicking that. You write that down verbatim, you use it. And everyone goes, well, I didn't even know that. It was what's in that film, and it was made at the time. So I'm currently in the first draft of the fourth book, and I've got a big pile of movies. So I do revisit some of them, but I find new ones as well. And there's loads of books there. But that's something I pitched from Ian Rankin, because I do a podcast called The Bestseller Experiment, where we interview authors. And that's one of the things he told me. He says he writes his story first, then he does his research, because otherwise you can end up in a trap where you're doing nothing but research and not actually writing the book. So that's how I do it. And I do get things wrong. I've had people say that machine gun wasn't around there or whatever, to which I say, there's magic. This is a universe just slightly to the left of ours. And funny you should mention that machine gun was available then through some trick of fate. So I've got to get out of jail clause there. Yes, hello.
Is Faye based on anyone, or is she completely invented?
Faye is an amalgam of my wife, my daughter, and my mother and my sister. Yes, all of whom don't take any crap from anyone. And you know, and I thought it's one of the reasons the modern day version that I wrote didn't quite work. I was like a dad at a disco trying to write a modern teenager, and there's something about Faye having that historical remove where I can make her more my own. I mean, one of the things people have said is she's quite immature, and she is to start with. She does sound younger than she is, but she's living in a rural community in the 1940s, and she's clever. She's not stupid, but she's maybe not as worldly wise as, but that changes through the book. She gets more and more savvy as she goes on. Certainly the fourth one, she turns 18, and you know, she's much more adult and has to take adult decisions that have consequences and what have you. So, but yeah, it's, I used to write plays, and my wife Claire usually had the lead role. She was sleeping with the writer. But it was great because you'd write stuff and she'd go, no, a woman wouldn't say that. I'm not saying that, that kind of thing. Because I think a criticism leveled at men very often is, oh, you don't write women very well, do you? But I've learned to listen, have an idea. So yeah, and she's evolved through that. So yeah. Oh, question online.
It's a very brief one. Are these books available as audio versions?
Are these books available as audio versions? They blooming well are. And I'm very blessed because I've got an amazing narrator called Candida Gubbins, who sounds like she could be a character in the book, frankly. And I got to meet her last week as well, because actually the audiobook for this was recorded last week, which is quite close to the knuckle. But yeah, I got to meet her last week, and she's amazing, and she copes brilliantly with all the, because there's bits of German in there and Polish and accents as well, and she's just fantastic. And for me, I do listen back to them before I start a draft of the next book, because it's probably the easiest way to catch up with what's gone before. And you do pick up, you go, oh god, yeah, I forgot he had a dog, you know, little things like that, and little things that trigger ideas for other stories. I don't know, you know, as we get further into the series, I don't know how much I can keep that up, but it's been really helpful so far. And they are, for me, they're almost the definitive version, because I hear Candida's voice in my head when I'm writing now, which is weird, but really, really cool. So, yeah. Any other questions, folks? Oh, yes.
If I'm not mistaken, this was going to be a trilogy, and now there's 2 more books. And will there be even after that? Where do you think?
It's all in the lap of the publishing gods. We did a 3-book deal, but what I did with the pitch, I did a pitch for publishers, and I said to them, you know, yes, there's 3 books, but it's not a trilogy, it's a series. There will be more. I'd love to take this all the way through the war. I pitched ideas for future kind of episodes as well. So, you know, the idea of having more was kind of there, but, you know, they had to, and it was tricky because the first one came out during lockdown. The second one, I had COVID last October, so I couldn't really do much to promote it then. This is the first time I've been able to go out and yay. So yeah, you know, publishing God's willing, there will be 2 more. I'm writing the 4th one now, which is I can exclusively reveal is a Christmas story. So yeah, we're gonna, so not this Christmas, but next Christmas. So there will be a bit of a gap, but I will be writing lots of short stories that you can all get for free when you sign up to my newsletter, blah, 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 witchesofwoodville.com, and there's various short stories there. So I'll keep telling little stories along the way. And it does build this kind of universe where, you know, all sorts of fun stuff happens. So, and they are episodic, you know, you could read this one. In fact, I've seen a couple of reviews saying, I've not read the other ones. I managed to enjoy this. You know, this is great. I'm now going to go back and read the others. You do get more out of them if you read 1 and 2, but they are episodic. They you know, they can stand alone essentially. So yeah. Yes.
The Bestseller Experiment is an excellent podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And
I'll give you your money later.
I wanted to know how much, because you've done loads and loads of episodes, how much do you feel you learned from other writers, and what was the weirdest thing you learned?
I have been transformed as a writer by the Bestseller Experiment. So this is a podcast. This was it's been going for nearly, it'll be 6 years in October. We're coming up to 400 episodes. And I co-wrote a movie called Robot Overlords, a sort of fun kids science fiction movie. And I did the tie-in novelization. So I had a book, yay. And a friend of mine who I knew from when I was a teenager, we went to different schools, but we knew each other, went to gigs and stuff like that, a guy called Mark DeVoe. and he's a doer. He gets things done. You know, he's an entrepreneur. He starts businesses, that kind of thing. And he's now a life coach as well. And he messaged me out of the blue, completely out of the blue, because this is what he does. He wrote to Terry Pratchett. He wrote to Tom Clancy. He got replies. This is what he's got. Brilliant nerve, Mr. D. And he said, I've always wanted to write a novel, but I've never got beyond 20,000 words. I always get stuck. What's the secret? And one thing led to another. And we decided to write a novel together and chronicle the writing of it in a podcast. And the idea was that we would self-publish it within 12 months. So we said, we're going to write a novel, publish it within 12 months and try and get it up some of the Amazon charts and get some of those little orange bestseller flags. But while we do that, every week we'll interview authors and people in the industry trying to figure out what makes a best-selling novel. And I remember Mr. D at the beginning saying, maybe there's kind of 7 secret ingredients. Maybe there's something that everyone does. And what we've discovered is there's no bloody secret ingredient. There's a lot of luck. There's a lot of just knuckling down and writing. A persistence is the real thing, and a habit, forming a habit and writing as much as you can. Almost right. Certainly when you're starting out, writing every day, because it's like learning a musical instrument. If you practice 5 minutes every day, you're much more likely to become, an expert on it. And it worked. We wrote a book called Back to Reality, which is a sort of fun time travel novel, and it got to the #1 slot in 10 charts across the world. And but we decided to keep it going because we love talking to authors, because every author's story is different. Every author has a different path to publication. Some of them have a lot of luck. Some of them have been banging their head against the wall for years and suddenly it happens. But yeah, persistence and building a habit are the things that we've learned a lot. But yeah, we've spoken to big name authors and we've spoken to debut authors. We had a local author called David Lee Stone on this week's episode, who lives in Ramsgate, and he's a fantasy author. And he was one of these guys in the late 90s, got a massive advance, thought he was living the dream, but publishing sort of chewed him up, spat him out, went through a very tough time. But now he's got all the rights back to his book. He's self-publishing. He's doing really, really well. And he's publishing on his own terms, So everyone's got a different story. And it's completely changed me. It's such a privilege to talk to authors every week and learn something new from them. And sometimes they're telling you the same thing and it's reinforcing an idea. And sometimes it's something completely out of the blue. But every week there's a little nugget of something where I think, I can use that. I can definitely use that. The strangest thing, I don't know, actually. I'd have to think about that. We've, let me think about that. I'll come back to that. One. Yes, Emily.
We have another question from the stream, from a Gothic writer. According to Discovery TV documentaries, the Nazis were heavily into black magic. Are you planning to include some of that in the book?
So according to Discovery, and that's, what was the name of the Gothic writer? Apparently the Nazis were into black magic. Yeah, well, there is a bit of that in Babes in the Wood, actually. There's a recurring character called Otto Kopp, who I love writing because he's a proper black hat villain. He's what's the name of the guy in The Mandalorian, the director who speaks like this? Werner Herzog. Thank you, Emily. He's one part of Werner Herzog and Ronald Lacey from Raiders of the Lost Ark, and he's wonderful to write. So there is some of that in there. And there's a little bit of in Ghost of Ivy Barn as well. The fourth one less so, but I will come back to the war. But yeah, I mean, this is why this period is so fantastic, because there's such a rich seam of story potential. I've got, a Scrivener document just full of, we could use this monster, or we could use this real event, or we could put this thing here or whatever. So, it could run and run and run potentially. So who knows? But yeah, thanks for that question. Lovely. Yes, hello.
When did you decide to be a full-time writer, and how big a decision was it? All right, do you do other things? I know you do your podcast as well, but do you classify yourself as a writer, and that is what you do?
Yeah. I was made redundant a few years ago. So I worked in bookselling and publishing for 25 years, and I worked for a publisher for 16 years, Orion Publishing, and I looked after Amazon for my sins. Sorry, Martin. And things were changing with and I'm sitting there thinking, actually, I am pretty much redundant anyway. And I could see it was on the horizon. I knew we had a good redundancy package because I've been there a while, and I knew it would give me about a year. I figured, okay, if I get this, I've got a year to. And again, it's something we hear from one thing that comes up again and again, the bestseller experiment, lawyers. lawyers say, well, yes, I just took a year off to write a novel, like we can all do it, but lawyers manage it somehow. So I managed to I thought, okay, I've got a year, and I wrote like a demon, an absolute demon. I wrote this, I wrote screenplays, I wrote other books as well, just writing. I was down to my last 200 quid when we got the deal for this, and I got a film deal within weeks of each other. So that's sort of kept us going, and now my wife is keeping us going. So please buy the books. So yes, I am full-time writer for the moment. Let's keep selling books. The film, the film is a horror movie called Unwelcome, and it's coming in Halloween, and it's about a young couple, lovely couple, live in London, have a terrible experience. Someone breaks into their apartment. She's pregnant. They want to get away from London. So they inherit a house on the west coast of Ireland, and the house is in the middle of the country. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's a big garden. At the bottom of the garden is a wall. Then there's a door. Then there's a hole in the wall where you leave an offering for the little people. And if you miss an offering, things can go horribly, horribly wrong. And things go horribly, horribly wrong. And it's we pitched it as Straw Dogs meets Gremlins. So it's like home invasion, but with little creatures and monsters. And we shot it in sort of the lockdown sandwich, September and October 2020, which is astonishing. And it was, everyone's wearing masks. It was a really kind of tough shoot, but I'm so proud of it. It was supposed to come out in March, but Omicron, because it's a Warner Brothers film, they were like, no, we're gonna bump it to Halloween. Halloween's probably a better time for a horror movie as well. So yeah, if you type in Unwelcome movie on YouTube, it'll come up. I'm in the trailer for some reason and my wife, yes, because there's a scene in a pub. And we all managed to wangle our way into. The director was going, "How the bloody hell did you get in the trailer?" I said, "Well, clearly Warner Brothers decided that the thing that's going to put bums on seats is a slightly pudgy, pasty white man." So yes, form an orderly queue, everyone. So yes, Unwelcome. So yes. Hello, yes.
The trailer for Unwelcome looks awesome. Where did the inspiration come from for the story?
Well, it's the first time I've been asked that in public. Actually, how much do I want to say? We used to live somewhere else. We had a bad experience, not as bad as the one in the film, and we decided to move to the country. So it came from that place where we were very unhappy, and then we found ourselves incredibly happy. But you can't make a film out of people so you make them incredibly happy, and you make their lives a misery with little monsters and things. So that's what we've done. So it came from weirdly, it's a very, very personal film with goblins. So it does, and I think that's why it works. The couple in it are a nice couple. You want them to do well. There's a line they say, which is "you and me versus the world." They stick together, but we do our best to make their lives a complete misery. So, and drama ensues. Very bitey drama. Yes. Yes, online.
Yeah, we have another kind of a shorter question and then like a slightly different one.
Okay.
So Ian Sainsbury asks, where can I get that shirt?
Ian Sainsbury. We've got friends of Ian Sainsbury in the audience. Here we go. Let's just, give him a wave. Give him a wave. There we go. Ian, much to my good lady wife's chagrin, I have this habit of buying terrible shirts on Facebook, and this was part of a 3-pack. But I thought it's witchy, and I've got a rocket one as well. And I thought I'd wear it on. So it is Facebook. I'll see if I can find it and send you the link. But yes, so thank you, Ian. Ian Sainsbury, another fantastic author. He's got a book out this week as well, the Jimmy Blue series. Check it out. It's like Lee Child on steroids. It's absolutely brilliant. So yes. And was there another question?
Yes, there's another one from Stephen Ryder. Are the short stories fun to write? They appear to be from the perspective of the reader. So
are the short stories fun to write? They're a bloody nightmare. They are really, really hard. I thought, oh yeah, write some short stories. Now, the thing is, when you write something like this, 80, 90,000 words, it's 80, 90,000 words. People don't give it as much scrutiny as a 5,000 word short story where there is nowhere to hide and everyone I use an editor called Julian Barr for my short stories, and he does not miss a trick. He knows all my bad habits now. He's absolutely brilliant. He always gives it a kicking. But yeah, they're really, really hard because every word counts. But I do enjoy writing them because I can have little episodes, little things happening that don't necessarily make for a full-length story. So yeah, we've got a thing called the Miss Charlotte Quartet, where you discover more about Miss Charlotte's past, which starts, I think, in 1593. So she's got quite a past. And there's one that Oh God, what's the title of it, Andy? I forgot. Watling, yeah. There's one set on Watling Street, which sort of is a weird Roman ancient times prequel to this, because the things that happened in the Watling Street story happen in this as well. So yeah, and there's more to come. So yes. Any more questions, Martin? Yes, Anna.
Could you talk about your liking for Words of Gummidge a bit and explain what he is for those who might not know?
Well, Wurzel Gummidge, I mean, my wife and I grew up in a period when television was designed to absolutely petrify children. You know, so you watch Wurzel Gummidge on a Sunday afternoon thinking it's an adorable story about a scarecrow who removes his head and puts other heads on. And, you know, so it was kind of, and also, you know, I grew up in a period where there were these films saying you're going to drown in a pond, you're going to be struck by lightning, you're going to be run over by a train. You know, you're constantly being told that life is short and perilous. So, you know, it kind of freaked me out. But I do love that kind of folk horror, which is where the Crow folk came from. The other scarecrow influences, there was Dennis Potter's The Singing Detective. There was a scarecrow in that, which I watched that way too young when it first came on. And again, you know, lots of well, you say nightmares, I call it story fuel, you know, so it inspires you one way or another. So, but yeah, I love Wurzel Gummidge, that folk horror thing, which is, I mean, the new one I love. I think it's terrific. The music was playing when you came in. Mackenzie Crook is an absolute bloody genius. So yeah, I am kind of, because I grew up, until I was about 8, I grew up in Hornsey in London, you know, it was kind of concrete jungle. And then we moved to leafy Leatherhead in Surrey. And my dad was a school caretaker. My mum was one of the cleaners. But I had suddenly fields to play in, which I'd never had before. So it was one of these weird things where I went from riding on my bike, you know, where there's drug dealers and broken glass everywhere, to fields that were all mine. And that just fires up the imagination. So yeah, it was. It's all these little pieces of a puzzle that have led to these books. So, any more questions? Yes, Emily.
Yeah, we have another one from the stream. In the TV series or movie adaptation of the books, who would be your dream castings?
Oh, we got that here. Sorry, yeah. Dream cast. I don't know. See, the thing is, whoever plays Faye would have to be about 17, 18, maybe early 20s, playing younger. Yeah, Emily Formacue. Yeah. So I don't know. They're probably an unknown. I remember watching that film about the Sutton Who. Oh, yeah, there's an Emily here. Emily, yeah, you're an actress as well. Yeah, actually, yeah, you'd be great, actually. I remember watching that film about Sutton Who with Ray Fiennes and who was the young woman in that? Yes, thank you. Yes, and she looked great in that. So yeah, I'm not sure about Faye. They'd probably be an unknown. And the weird thing is, a lot of the villagers are sort of based on carry-on actors. so it just helps me. So her father, Terence, if you read the description, wrinkly face, hair like a big white cloud, it's Sid James. I'll come clean. It's basically Sid James.
I've got Alan Davies in my head.
Okay, well, whatever turns you on. That's a good one. I like that. Well, of course he's done. Yeah, that's good. So I don't know. I tend not to think too much about that. I mean, Miss Charlotte, you know, you'd have an Eva Green or someone like that. Mrs. Teach, what's the name? You go blank up here. This is like being on a quiz show. Gavin and Stacey, Ruth Jones. Ruth Jones would be great as Mrs. Teach. She'd be terrific. I think she's got, you know, that kind of, she can carry that, I think. So yeah, but don't, you know, whoever, casting agents know much more than I do. So yeah. Any other questions? Yes, hello.
What are some of the books that have inspired you, especially Carlton?
Well, the first fantasy I read were the Ursula Le Guin books, which you know, I wasn't Tolkien, I was Ursula Le Guin. My teacher, Miss Maloney, she read it to us in class, and you know, she's here. And it completely opened my eyes. It completely, you know, opened the door for. I was big into Star Wars as well, but that made a huge difference. And Terry Pratchett, you know, he's. I mean, obviously, there's you know, you've got the three witches there. My three witches are very different, but that same kind of Hecate thing that I mentioned there, that works for a reason. That kind of trio works really, really well. Robert Rankin is a big influence as well. I love Robert because he did that thing of taking a real place and making it magical with the Brentford trilogy. And Robert was very generous with his advice to me early on as well, because when I was running events at Waterstones and Epsom, I said, will you come and do an event? And he came and did an event. And I'll tell you what he did. He was standing up here like this, and he said, and I was like, you know, standing to one side, having put the chairs out and everything. And he said, I want to thank Mark Stay, who's a writer. And I'd written a couple of plays that no one had seen really, but it was the first time someone would get, you're right. And that's one, again, it's one of these things we find on the bestseller experiment. All you need is a teacher or a mentor or someone to tap you on the shoulder and say, you could do this. You're a writer. And which is why this book is dedicated to teachers who said, oh, yeah, you're good at this. Give it a go. Give it a go. So there's 3 teachers, all women, funnily enough, who said, yeah, give it a go. You do this. You're good at this. And that makes a huge difference. So, yeah, thank you. Okay, any more questions? Okay, I'm going to take one question from the pale-faced young man there who's waited. He was the first one here. And so I'm going to take a question from him, and then I think we'll get on with the signing. So, yes. Is the ghost of Ivy Barn. Did you see it? Did you see it? Did you? What happened? There was a ghost. Oh my God, it was terrible. His head exploded and everything. Oh my God. Wow, I wish you were here to see that. I really do. Right, I think that wraps everything up. Streaming people, we're going to leave you now. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for reading the book, spreading the word, all that kind of thing. You're all absolutely marvelous. Everyone here, wave at the streamers and say goodbye. Bye. Bye, streamers. Bye. Bye.